All right, so we're heading on to the off-road course in the new Frontier. First of all, we're going to switch into 4 low. So we're going to go into neutral, come to a complete stop, and switch into 4-wheel drive low. We've got that. We can lock the rear diff if we need it later on. And we should be good to go here. Automatically engages the forward-facing and side-facing cameras. So we've got some pretty good inclines on this off-road test route. Gorgeous scenery here in Utah. Kind of can't go wrong any direction you look. We're in the Nissan Frontier Pro-4X. So this is the top trim, most off-road capable Nissan Frontier. You've got an electronically locking rear differential, 2-speed transfer case, 4 high, 4 low, 2-wheel drive. Upon first impressions, we've got pretty nice ride quality off-road. I was kind of hoping that would be the case considering how nice this Frontier rides on the street. Hitting some pretty bumpy terrain, and I'm not getting jostled around too much. It's pretty comfortable. Got some sharp rocks up here. These Dynapro AT2s should hold up pretty well. And again, not a lot of impact noise or rattles. This is a very solid truck over some pretty rough terrain right now. Got a little bit of a rough incline here. 9.8 inches of ground clearance in this Pro-4X model. That's kind of about the sweet spot for an off-road capable truck. You don't really need much more than that in most situations, unless you're doing some pretty heavy-duty rock crawling. We haven't aired down or anything for this. We're still running factory street tire pressures. These hand cooks are providing a good amount of traction. Oh yes. Nice little gnarly rock crawl section here. I'm going to take this a little bit slower. No issues over these rocks. The traction control system is doing a really nice job distributing power between all 4 tires. We also have a camera system that will show us a 360 view. It's not the best view. It's not the highest resolution, but it comes on when you need it, and you can quickly access it with the center camera button right there. A pretty gnarly, rocky trail. Not used to this type of terrain from Michigan. Traction control is off, but you can hear the system still doing some work, getting us up these inclines pretty drama-free. Gonna lock the rear diff through some of this. Engage pretty much immediately. Dash is lit up like a Christmas tree. One thing I do like about this Frontier, there are no special off-road modes or anything like that. You just kind of go for a drive, and that's all you need to do. We'll unlock that rear diff. That is one great thing about this Frontier, is I keep saying it, but I love the size of this truck. Yes, maybe it's as long as some of the larger trucks out there, but it's a lot narrower, and that makes off-roading on tighter trails like this a lot easier and a little bit more stress-free. You're not constantly scraping through branches. You can pick your lines a little bit more accurately, and there's something to be said about a smaller vehicle footprint in some off-road scenarios. And with so many mid-sized trucks matching the sizes of full-size trucks 10 years ago these days, it's nice that Nissan has still kept this Frontier relatively small. Pretty impressed with the usable ground clearance. We're hitting some pretty rough terrain here, and the differential's clearing everything with ease. No problems there. These tires seem to be holding up great. A lot of sharp rocks, tons of traction. Maybe not the most aggressive looking all-terrain tire. Definitely kind of a hybrid between a highway tire and a light all-terrain, but as far as traction goes, these are performing really pretty well. Oh yeah, there we go. These are finally smoothing out a little bit here. Got some 2-track. Again, very impressed with these Bilstein shocks. It's amazing how much more Bilstein tuned suspension we've seen in the off-road market lately. They've really made a change and gotten into off-road suspension, and they're doing a pretty good job with it, at least in this application. I know in the Tacoma TRD off-road that we tested last year, the Bilsteins were a little bit too stiff for my preferences. I would say the tuning in this new Frontier is definitely favorable when compared to the Tacomas. Can't believe how solid this interior and cabin feels. I was just in a Bronco last week doing an off-road course, and that thing was just rattling like crazy. You wouldn't believe how much was going on in the interior, from the seats, from the roof panels, the door seals. All of it was just really very noisy. And as you can hear, this Frontier is dead silent. I've got a water bottle in the back. You can kind of hear that, and I'm rattling around in the seatbelt a whole lot. And that's about it. I do like this hydraulic power steering. It's got a good amount of feel to it. So we're going to start on this incline. We'll lock that rear diff, and we'll just get going, see how it handles. This is a pretty good grade. About a 14-degree incline. Got a nice big rock in the middle here. We'll just kind of straddle that. We've got front skid plates, a lot of underbody protection on this Pro-4X model. Going up about 17 degrees here. Nothing crazy, but very drama-free. An off-road coach once told me that a good time to lock the rear diff is when you're going up or downhill in any situation that would be very strenuous, that would probably put you out of breath if you were running up it. That's a good time to kind of think about engaging a locker. And that's kind of a philosophy that I've followed, for better or for worse, over time in vehicles that have lockers. In so many other trucks and SUVs, this would be a pretty narrow trail, and I haven't scraped many sticks in this at all today. We're probably about to test the hill descent control right up here. Boy, look, talk about a great view. These mountain ranges in Utah are just incredible. So pretty. Alright, so we're going to try out hill descent control here. Got a pretty steep grade down. We're in manual mode, 2nd gear. I've always kind of thought hill descent control is a little bit of a gimmick. I think it might make sense on really steep descents, but for the most part, using the brake pedal seems to do the trick. But we're staying at a nice 4 or 5 miles per hour down this hill. Very controlled. Feel very stable, and we've got a little bit of ABS trickery going on from the front end, but for the most part, not hearing too many noises from the traction control system. This is definitely a much quieter and in the background off-roading traction control system than what Toyota has employed for the last decade or two. We haven't really hit too many obstacles that would give a good comparison between A-Track. Of course, this Frontier doesn't have anything close to what crawl control can do, but the locking rear diff kind of makes up for that. Cool, we're going to turn off hill descent and just kind of bleed on the brakes here. Seems like a nicely tuned system. And also just manually putting us in second gear down a hill seems to do a pretty good job of controlling our speed. Despite getting jostled around a lot, this is a pretty comfortable off-road experience. The ride quality is excellent. These tires are soaking up the bumps really well. It is pretty cool having this little center display that gives you a lot of off-road information. It'll tell you if your center diffs are locked, what mode you're in. It says right now we're in 4x4 low. It'll give you your inclinometer, so whether you're going up or down, what that grade is. And of course, the degrees at which you're rolled over. It'll go up to 30 degrees, which seems pretty scary to me. Looking at the truck in front of us, is a pretty bouncy incline. We'll creep up here a little bit to see how far up he's gotten. And I'm not going to get a running start on this on purpose, just to give us a little bit more of a challenge on the way up. Test these off-road traction control systems, see how they do in 4 low. All right, looks like we're pretty clear. Grades always look so much steeper before you get on them, and then once you're there, it's not as crazy as you thought it would be. Got a nice little sharp rocky section here. We're gonna just go over that instead of through it. I also don't want to pinch flat today. Easy work. Locking that rear diff really makes this a drama-free experience. Seems to have pretty good articulation off-road, no problems putting its power down. All right, we'll go ahead and unlock that diff. It's just a button that pushes in and then pushes out when you give it another press, and it'll unlock kind of on its own time. There we go. Without it locked, you can hear the traction control system working here. Maybe we'll put it back on and... oh yeah, much easier. Pretty rocky, pretty low traction up here. It's a fun trail, something different, something real, something natural, something wild, instead of all the off-road parks that we've been doing in Michigan. Let's see where this rock is ahead of me. Let's go around that. And even though this isn't the highest resolution camera system, I can still see big obstacles or things that I want to avoid in this 360 cam and forward-facing camera. Oh yeah, a little bit of a mud pit here. Easy enough. And when you're just not quite sure which direction the trail goes, that camera system does come in handy. Definitely not something you want to rely on, but for the occasional use, I think it could save you in a few situations. Alright, so we're heading down the mountain in 4 high on some slightly faster 2-track dirt roads. We can test out a little bit more ride quality, comfort, see how this does over some pretty rough pavement. Considering how washboarded all this is, again, still very quiet on the inside, not a lot of cabin intrusion over bumps, Ride quality is excellent. Pretty impressed with this Bilstein suspension. It's doing a really nice job on and off-road, soaking up all the bumps. It's expertly tuned for washboarding and bigger impacts. It's just a really nicely balanced truck suspension setup. I think if you're going to be doing any off-roading in a Frontier, the Pro-4X package is a really good way to go. I don't really see the point in the Pro-X package with just rear-wheel drive, unless if that's just really what you want. Chances are you're going to need four-wheel drive if you've got the ground clearance and the suspension and the appearance of the Pro-4X. We didn't really run into too many tight switchbacks, so the turning radius didn't come into play, but that is one of my few complaints about this Frontier, is that it's not a very good turning radius. You got to do a few 3-point turns to get around some tighter corners in parking lots and in off-road trails. We're at altitude today, about 7,000 feet, so we don't have the most power from this 3.8 liter V6. Probably nowhere near as close to the 310 horsepower this is rated for, but still seems pretty adequate. It's a really smooth engine, really nice, easy powertrain. Fuel economy numbers are about the same as what they were in the previous generation Frontier, but there are a lot of improvements with refinement in this new generation. It just feels modern yet old school. I think that's kind of the name of the game here with this new truck. They've done a really good job updating this visually, and the underpinnings drive and feel really nice. This feels like a very solid vehicle. Doesn't have a lot of rattles or shakes. It feels very well bolted together. The suspension tuning is phenomenal. Everything else feels about what you'd expect out of a mid-sized truck. It's nicely sized, but also it still retains a lot of physical controls and touch buttons, and gives you really nice user-friendly ergonomics throughout this cabin. There's some neat little features too. A lot of accessories that you can customize the Frontier with. I think Nissan has around 80 accessories on this new truck, ranging from in-bed speakers to side steps, frame-mounted rock rails, all sorts of fun stuff. And of course, there's probably going to be a pretty healthy aftermarket for these Frontiers as well. It's nice that Nissan lets you have a little bit of fun, and you don't always have nannies intervening. And if you want to do a little bit of Baja running or two-wheel drive action, you can turn off traction control and kick the rear end out a little bit if you want to, which is always a good time. Alright guys, well that's going to be it for this off-road test. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned on the Winding Road Magazine channel and TheTopher for more videos on this Nissan Frontier. We may or we may not have already posted our initial review on this, so stay tuned for that, or go check it out if it's already up. Thanks for watching, guys. This was a pretty impressive trail. Very cool to finally be in something more wild and real in the real world instead of like a set-up off-road park. Felt like I actually went somewhere this time. This new Nissan Frontier has some real high points. The suspension tuning is probably top on that list. It's very impressively done. Usually, to get this level and quality of suspension tuning on an off-road vehicle, you have to kind of go to the aftermarket. But in this new Frontier, it's right here from the factory. We've got a nice drivetrain. This 3.8 liter V6 is a pretty nice engine. It's smooth. It's relatively well powered. At altitude today, we've got a little bit less power than the 310 horsepower that is advertised, but for the most part, it did everything today with relative ease and comfort. Very impressed with this new Frontier's off-road capabilities. All right, guys, we'll leave it at that. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next video. Take care.